This is Mr. Hanna with your Chapter 5 review. You have the test on Wednesday. There are 20 questions, 17 multiple choice, 3 short answer. The first 4 questions are simply solving one-step inequalities. You have to remember to get the variable by itself by doing the opposite. Also, if you have to multiply or divide by a negative number, which means like this example right here, the number with the variable is negative, then you have to flip the inequality arrow when you do that. So in this example, we have negative 5 less than x plus 6. We subtract 6 from both sides. We would get negative 11 is less than x. But on the test, it's going to be written with the variable on the left side. So you got to flip the whole thing around. Notice it's still pointing at the negative 11. X is greater than negative 11. On this example, x minus 1/4 is greater than 1/3. We're subtracting, so we add 1/4 to both sides. And your calculator will do it for you. You get x is greater than 7/12. Here I've got x divided by negative 3. We're dividing, so we have to multiply. And it doesn't matter whether the negative is with the 3 in the middle of the division sign or up here with the x. You got to get rid of the negative 2. So we multiply both sides by negative 3. We had to flip, because of negative 3, we had to flip the arrow. We get x is greater than negative 6. Here, I got 2.5x is less than or equal to negative 10. This is positive, so I don't have to flip the arrow. I divide both sides by 2.5. I get x is less than or equal to negative 4. You have 4 multi-step inequalities to solve. You need to remember the steps to solving a multi-step inequality. First, if you have any parentheses, do your distributive property. Second, if you have any like terms on the same sign, you combine them. Just do exactly what it says. If it says add, you add. If it says subtract, you subtract. Third, you move the smaller variable to the larger one. That's if the variables are on opposite sides, and you do the opposite. After that, it should be a 2-step inequality. So you add or subtract the constant away from the variable. That's the number that's with the variable. You move it away by doing the opposite. And lastly, you divide or multiply or divide by the coefficient to get the variable alone. Remember, if that coefficient is negative, you'll be flipping that arrow. So in this example, we have 3x minus the quantity 2x plus 4 is greater than 5x plus 8. I have parentheses, so I have to distribute. If you don't see a number there, it's like a 1. So I multiply negative 1 times 2x, and I multiply negative 1 times 4. I still have the 3x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And over here, I still have greater than 5x plus 8. I do have like terms, this 3x and this minus 2x. I subtract those, I get x. I still have the minus 4. I still got the greater than 5x plus 8. I have variables on both sides. Move the smaller one. If you move the smaller one, it'll keep your coefficient positive, and you won't have to worry about flipping that arrow. Subtract x. That minus sign is with the 4. What cancels out x is minus x. So I get negative 4, because that minus sign stays in front of it, is greater than 4x plus 8. Now I want to move the constant. The constant is this 8 that doesn't have a variable with it. It's adding to 4x, so I got to subtract it from both sides. Negative 4 minus 8 is negative 12, which is greater than 4x. I have to divide. Because 4 is positive, I do not have to flip the arrow. I get negative 3 is greater than x. But remember, on the test, all the answers will be given with a variable on the left side. So we have to rewrite the whole thing. X is less than negative 3. You have 2 that ask you to find the sum, or they tell you the sum of 2 consecutive integers is at most. At most means less than or equal to 9. So, one of them asks you what is the largest value of the greater number. The other one asks you what's the largest value of the lesser number. Well, consecutive integers, the first number is n, the second number would be one more, so we use n plus 1. Then we combine like terms, n plus n is 2n. I got the plus 1 is less than or equal to 9. Subtract the 1, I get 2n is less than or equal to 8. Then I divide by 2, I get n is less than or equal to 4. N is our first number, so that's our smaller number. So if you're answering question number 1, which one's the largest value of the greater number, your answer would be 5, n plus 1. But if they wanted the largest value of the lesser number, then it would be 4, because 4 plus 5 is 9. 5 is the biggest number I can add with 4 to get 9. I mean, there are other combinations, but they wouldn't be consecutive integers. You have 2 that ask you to solve a compound inequality, and both of them will be AND statements, but they will look like this in that combined form. You have to remember to split them up, and it doesn't split up right here. It splits up here and then here. I write the negative 6 less than or equal to this whole thing that's in the middle, 2x plus 2. And this whole thing that's in the middle, 2x plus 2, less than or equal to 10. Then I solve both. I got to get rid of this constant. I subtract 2 on both sides. I get negative 8 is less than or equal to 2. I got to get rid of this constant. I subtract 2 from both sides. I get 2x is less than or equal to 8. Then I divide by 2. I get negative 4 is less than or equal to x. Divide by 2. I get x is less than or equal to 4. And then we can combine them back. Take the and one of the x's out. And you get negative 4 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 4. You have 2 problems where you have to write the inequality from the graph. So what you do, since they're both going to be AND statements like this, you write down the numbers. Put x in the middle. With a combined AND statement like this, both of these inequality arrows almost always point to the left, because we usually write the smaller number before we write the larger number. Then you look, that's a dot, so just less than, but I mean that's a circle, so just less than. That, however, is a filled-in dot. Filled-in dots have more writing than circles, so less than or equal to. Write the line underneath it. You have 2 where you have to choose the graph from the inequality. So they give you the inequality, and then you'll have 4 graphs to choose from. Remember, less than, greater than are circles, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to are dots. Remember, if the variable is on the left, the inequality arrow tells you which direction you go on the graph. So I've got a 3. I go to 3 and I put a circle because there was no line under it. Then I go to negative 2 and I put a circle because there was no line under it. On this one, the arrow points to the right because the numbers to the right of 3 are bigger than 3. And bigger is greater than. On this one, the arrow points to the left because the numbers to the left are less than negative 2. Yeah, it'd be negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, but you'd rather owe somebody $2 than $3 or $4 or $5. So negative 2 is smaller. Sometimes on this kind of graph, an OR statement, they both point in the same direction. That just means they overlap. See, if this said x was less than 3, I'd put a circle here and then it'd graph all the way this way and it would completely cover up this x is less than negative 2. And the last multiple choice question, you have one that says solve the compound inequality and then pick the graph of the answer. So you have to solve both. I get x minus 2 greater than or equal to 3x plus 6. Or 2x greater than 6 minus x. I subtract x from both sides. I get negative 2 is greater than or equal to 2x plus 6. Subtract 6. I get negative 8 is greater than or equal to 2. Divide by 2. I get negative 4 is greater than or equal to x. I want to rewrite it so I can figure out which graph is real easily. So I flip it around. X is less than or equal to negative 4. Over here, after I add the x to both sides, I have 3x is greater than 6. And then I got to get rid of the 3, so I divide both sides by 3. So x is greater than 2. So here's my answer. Here's the graph of my answer. I go to negative 4. There's a line there, so I put a dot. It's pointing to the left, so to the left. I go to 2. There's no line there, so I just put a circle, and the arrow is pointing to the right. You have 3 short answer questions which ask you to write the inequality and solve it. Of course, they'll have those answers written down for you, so there you go. One of them is like this. Joe wants to buy or wants to spend no more than $50. Anytime they say no more than and a number and it's a spending problem, it's less than or equal to that number because you can't spend more money than you have. He buys 2 CDs for $12 each and a movie. So what we want to know is how much can he spend on a movie? So we have to go 2 times 12. That's 24. Plus the M, for how much the movie is less than or equal to 50. We subtract 24 from both sides. We get M is less than or equal to 26. So Joe could spend $26 on a movie or less, but not more. That's the test. Study. Good luck.